Greetings to you, Crocodile Army. I just got back from a trip to Salt Lake City for work, and it was an interesting trip. I had some chats with the locals that gave me a few thoughts that I'd like to share. First off, you know how people say that Mormons are super nice people? Well, from what I experienced, I'd say people are right about that. Some were nice almost to the point of awkwardness for me. I don't know that all of them were Mormons, but demographics would dictate that many were. At the Hyatt where I stayed, when I checked in, the guy at the check-in desk gave me an entire tour of the first floor of the hotel. He took great pride in showing off the amenities and talking about how excellent their free breakfasts were, so I didn't have the heart to rain on his parade and tell him that I spend the equivalent of a couple of months a year in hotels, so it's going to take a lot more than free Eggs Benedict to really excite me. He did, however, reward my patience with a room with a view of snow-capped mountains. He mentioned having dinner there with a glass of wine at the hotel, and when I expressed mild surprise at that, seeing as we were in Utah and all, he explained that just before the 2002 Olympics, Utah relaxed many of their previously very stringent laws around alcohol sales and consumption. This was a nod to economic considerations, and those considerations superseded the reasons for the strict rules in the first place, which were, of course, religious considerations. While this is kind of predictable, it does go to show how religious ideas, while very strong and principles-based on the surface, can be knocked down by much more mundane ideas, like economic opportunity and the changing of social acceptability. Mormons used to not even allow black people into the church because they thought they were cursed or some other such nonsense. Nothing changed in their holy books, or holy golden tablets as the case may be, before and after the ban, but after the civil rights movement, they decided that maybe being racist was bad for recruitment. Fewer members means less money and less power. Mormons got an object lesson in this when it came out that the huge influx of money that killed Prop 8 in California was from the church, mostly from general funds given in Utah, that were never given with that use in mind. You see, there are actually quite a few Mormons who are not comfortable bankrolling the anti-marriage equality effort, or who are even actively in favor of marriage equality, and the church leadership experienced quite a backlash. This led to the church publicly announcing recently that they would no longer fund such efforts in the future. Again, there were no scriptures that changed between then and now. They simply decided that the cost of it was too much to bear, and their silence on the matter is the result of that calculation. If you notice the trend here, religious teachings can be brought closer to a more free and humanist ideal by simple monetary and peer pressure, as well as some well-deserved shame. While I hear quite a few atheists adopting a stated goal of somehow wiping out all religion, I think history has shown that it's far easier to simply bring their more flexible than advertised doctrine more in line with humanist values. Ridding the world of religion is far too frustrating and unrealistic a goal for my liking. When religion becomes nearly indistinguishable from humanism, I'd happily call that a victory. Whether they're conscious of it or not, religion is subject to natural selection too, and people are doing the selecting. Before the Civil War started, preachers in the North and preachers in the South used scripture to argue both sides of the slavery debate. It's no surprise that they often went with what was popular locally. It's also no wonder that neo-Confederate Southerners today want to convince people that slavery had nothing to do with the Civil War. Their history is both embarrassing and distasteful, and they know almost nobody wants to see that kind of South rise again. So I support the efforts of those atheists who rail against religious leaders and do intellectual battle that way. While we're at it though, let's also support the efforts of those who are trying to make the country and the world more hospitable for humanity. When one fundamentalist preacher is discredited, more will just take their place. We need to encourage the kind of society that will breed a lot less of the target audience, and the hellfire and brimstone types can either adapt or face extinction. When faced with that kind of choice, all that revealed truth stuff suddenly becomes a lot more negotiable.